Hello. So, I'm in on Don. I've been sick for a month and a half. Um, Jim's not been doing much, so we haven't had much streaming going on. But at this point, I'm feeling better. I got steroids from the doctor. Boom, yay, modern medication. Um, we've got so much going on. The media is just ignoring um, the fact that Ketanji Brown Jackson goes light on child pornography. That's amazing in and of itself. Uh, they're making excuses for child porn, um, which I didn't see. I didn't expect to see Democrats in the media so openly come out in support of child porn and child porn providers and producers and distributors. So that was totally. I mean, if you still trust the media at this point, I don't know what to tell you. Really don't. But yeah, the media have lied about that. They've lied about the Hunter Biden thing, Ukraine. Um, it's a crazy world we're living in right now. So I'm not here to do a show. I'm here to do Jim's show because I've got I'm up to my eyeballs in crap. 20 credits. It was relatively simple throughout. I wouldn't say that. I've been pretty sick and trying to keep up with everything, and I moved and bought a house and everything during that time. So it's like the 20 credits maybe wasn't the greatest idea, but here I am, and we're going for it. So without further ado, here is Jim Cooper's show because I've got more stuff to do at 11, and we may have to speed up some of Jim's show. So here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Cooper.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Home Split Cast. I'm Jim. I'll be your host today. Hope everyone's having a really good week. Um, as for me, it's not been that great. The last couple of weeks, I've been gone a lot and been having a lot of problems with my computer. And then, the last 2 weeks, I've been dealing with a lot of personal problems that have just made it hard to um, record and to stay up on the news. But we keep pressing on and always hoping for the best. So I hope everything's going well with you. And if not, I hope you have someone that you can talk to about things when things are rough and things are down. I don't have as many people like that, so appreciate those that you do have. Um, Lots been going on the last couple of weeks, and I'm not talking about my life. Um, we got this. I don't know. They're calling it the war in Ukraine. I mean, it's an invasion from Russia into Ukraine. I mean, I suppose it's a war, but it's not really affecting us too much. We're it's being covered as if we're at war and we have troops over there. We really don't have any interest in this at the moment. I really think that the military and our government wants to be involved in this war, but the American people so far have not shown any desire to get involved in this. I mean, we just finished the Afghanistan war. We're not really eager to jump into another war that really doesn't have anything to do with us. I mean, we weren't attacked in any way. We aren't, you know, so it's a little different than 9/11 or Pearl Harbor, where we had a vested interest. We had been attacked, but here there's not really anything that has happened to us, so people aren't as anxious to get involved. But at some point, I fear we will inevitably have to get involved. Congress is really mostly the Republicans, but there are some Democrats too that are really pushing for a no-fly zone in Ukraine over Ukraine. And the problem that I see with that is that we're almost certainly going to go to war if we do that, because inevitably the Russians are going to shoot down one of our planes if there's a no-fly zone. And once our planes are shot at, once we have casualties, Russia shoots an American, we're obligated then to have to retaliate. And then as soon as we retaliate, we're in the middle of a war, which if the United States gets involved in a war, I think this goes without being said, that once the United States gets involved in a war, the world will take sides, and so then we will be in a world war, because it's just going to be inevitable. The United States is such a large presence in the world that once we enter a war, there will be sides taken between Russia and America, the two superpowers of the world. It'll be inevitable that it will. I mean, I don't think we'll go into a world war, the next day. But as this thing continues, countries are going to take sides. Some are going to say that America is the aggressor by doing the no-fly zone. We had no business doing it, and they're going to take Russia's side. And then there are those who are going to say that the United States was on the side of good, trying to protect Ukraine, and that Russia is the villain. And they're going to say, we're going to take America's side in this. Russia can't get away with this. The interesting thing at that point will be to see which side China takes. If China takes Russia's side, I have every confidence, and maybe this is just my pride, my pride in my country, but I have no doubt that America would win whatever war we get into. My fear is what cost it will be. If Russia and China band together, it would be a long, bloody war. I believe in the end America will win, but how many troops will we lose? How much, what exactly will be the end result? I mean, it might be a Pyrrhic victory where we win, but we look and say we lost more than we won. I mean, we technically won the war, but everything that we lost, it wasn't worth it. That's what I'm concerned about. Not that America wouldn't win, but that at what cost would it be to win? How much would we have to lose? Would it be worth fighting this world war if we end up with a depression worse than we've ever had? Where our economy is absolutely collapsed, and we have no money and no food and no, and we have barely a country left. Will it be worth defending Ukraine at the end of the day? Was it worth it to lose our country? But yeah, technically we won the war. We beat the Russians. They're out of Ukraine now. Okay, but what did we accomplish? I mean, that's what I'm worried about. Not that we won't win, but that the cost would be so great that, and I hate to say it, but, basically the cost would be so great that we would say we should have just let Russia take Ukraine because it wasn't worth what happened to us, when this had nothing to do with us. And now look, we're basically a third world country now because we went to war with Russia and China and we didn't get anything out of it. So I don't know. It's just something that any president has to deal with. I'm sure Biden is struggling with that issue. I believe with all my heart that Biden wants to get involved in this war. I think he does. But he has the same problem that Woodrow Wilson had before World War I and Franklin Roosevelt had before World War II, that they really wanted to go to war, but the American people said, no, we don't want to be involved in this. This is a European war. It has nothing to do with us. Let's stay out of it. And Woodrow Wilson used the attack on the Lusitania because some Americans were killed. Now, there's some debate as to whether we lured the I think it was the Germans into attacking us by riding into a space that was off limits. But regardless, they attacked the Lusitania, killed some Americans, and then that gave us justification to get into the war. And as you remember well, in World War II, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, which gave us an excuse then to be able to say we're going to war. I don't know if there'll be an incident like that, but I know that up until that time, up until Americans' blood was shed, the American people were opposed to getting involved in those wars, even though the president and the military really wanted to get into them, and they got their excuse. And that's what I know. Biden and the military really want to get involved in this war, and you can tell it just by the media coverage. I mean, the media, except for when Donald Trump was in office, because the media was opposed to Donald Trump. The media will follow the government's whatever the government says. They'll follow. They'll tote the line. They'll if you listen to the media, if you listen to the reports, U.S. intelligence says this. U.S. intelligence says the U.S. military says there are no independent reporters here. They're just going by whatever the government releases in a press statement. They're not investigating these things. The government said that that this country that Putin bombed this, then that's what the press reports. Now, I'm not for a minute claiming that this is a wag the dog situation where Putin is the good guy and they're just making up stories. But my point is that they are just repeating the government line. Is my point. They don't independently verify these things. They just say this is what's happening because this is what the government told us is happening. And so the fact that they're doing wall-to-wall coverage of what's happening in Ukraine, showing us images of children, and women being rushed out of the sob stories, they're not. The purpose of that is to try to sway the American people into saying we've got to do something. This is horrific what's happening over there, and try to convince the American people to go to war. That's what I'm saying. So so I know that the government wants it. The media necessarily doesn't want it. I mean, the media loves stories. They can talk about stuff they can talk about, but the media is just following the government's lead. The government wants this to be the lead story, and wants them to be talking about it. Try to soften the American people to troops in Ukraine. It's obvious that that's what they're doing, and it's obvious, by the way, that America and I love my country. I mean, don't get me wrong here. Don't think I'm just tearing down my country. I support us. I think what Putin is doing is wrong, but America has a tendency to go overboard. Back in the Iraq War, we got rid of French fries, called them freedom fries, and now suddenly they're banning everything, any kind of talk that even questions what's going on with this war. Getting rid of Russian salad dressing, Russian vodka, Russian cheese. I mean, anything with the word Russian in it, they're banning in our country. Like, how is banning Russian salad dressing have anything to do with teaching Putin a lesson? I just read the other day that they're removing. Oh, I can't remember his name. Yuri something. The first man in space was a Russian cosmonaut, and now NASA is removing his name from great explorers. It wasn't just American explorers; it was like great explorers. The people who had trailblazed and made history, and his name was listed among there, along with like Neil Armstrong and different people, and they're removing his name because he was Russian. The guy died long before Putin was ever in office, but they're taking his name off. Like, why are you getting rid of his name? He accomplished something. He's nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. He has nothing to do with Putin. So why would we? Are we going to start banning Russian books? And books from Russian authors. Dr. Zhivago and all these different books, Russian poems, and Russian music won't be allowed to be played. Russian classical music and things. I mean, this is just getting absurd, and our country does this every time. We go overboard. I have no problem putting sanctions on Russia and all that, but then we just go crazy and start doing all of these ridiculous things and banning anything that even sounds Russian, changing names, erasing any presence of Russia. Seriously, I'm surprised that if we find a map or a globe, there's just going to be this empty thing, like the name that we will not say out loud. Instead of having the word Russia over that country, just be like, it's like something like that, like that which we will not name, or the unspeakable country. It's just getting a little overboard, in my opinion. They're going way too far with this. But and so that just tells you that they're really, really pushing, for some kind of a war, some kind of aggression, and they're trying to convince the people that. Well, I started to say they're trying to convince people Putin is a bad guy. I don't think there's any doubt that Putin's a bad guy, but they're trying to convince the American people that something needs to be done, that he needs to be stopped, and that we're the only ones who can do it. I'm not really willing to risk a war over there. I don't think. I mean, I love the Ukrainian people. I've been to Ukraine. I love the people there, but I don't know what interest we would have in going there and stopping him. The Ukrainians are doing very well, keeping him at bay anyway. We are providing assistance, which there again, I guess, in some ways, I mean, just like Roosevelt did the Lend-Lease program with Britain, and Germany ended up declaring war on us. I mean, I guess in some ways we are involved in this war because we're providing assistance and weapons. And just by doing that, we're going to become a target of the Russians. They're going to say, if the United States is aiding and abetting our enemies, or aiding, I guess we're not abetting them, for aiding their enemies, then we become the enemy. So I guess at this point we really are involved, but I just hate to see troops brought in at this point. Unless Putin does something, escalates it in some way, starts killing Americans, attacks us on our own soil, something like that. And then we have to retaliate because we can't just be a wuss about it. I mean, if we're punched, we can't just be like, okay, well, we're going to take it. No, I mean, theoretically, if Putin punches us, we've got to punch back. I mean, we've got to defend ourselves and defend our people. And if they kill or torture or capture Americans, then we have to retaliate. I mean, there has to be some kind of an action taken against them. So I'm not being a pacifist here and saying we shouldn't do anything, no matter what. But if he escalates it, then yeah, we definitely need to go in and put a stop to it and say this is not acceptable. You don't treat us like this. But as of right now, I don't have a problem giving weapons and things to Ukraine, but I don't want to see us put boots on the ground unless Putin escalates it. Now, if we see Putin doing what Hitler did, if Putin starts going into other countries and becomes a threat to the world, then yeah, I mean, I hate to make it sound like we really don't care if he takes Ukraine, but if he starts taking another country, we will care. But the problem is the Ukrainian people, I think, are capable of taking care of themselves in this. They're doing a fantastic job. But if it looks like that Putin is becoming a threat to everybody in the region, well, then yeah, I think we need to unite with European countries and stop him before he becomes like Hitler. Hitler, it's hard to remember. I mean, obviously, none of us remember because none of us were alive back then. But I'll just use the word "it's hard to remember" because how history is taught. History is taught in such a way that they don't go through the long periods of time. I mean, you just hit the timelines. Boom, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, this happened, and we forget what was going on at the beginning of World War II. And that was, first of all, America didn't know about the extermination of the Jews. We didn't find that out until much later in the war. So it was a problem that was in Europe. Hitler was invading countries. We didn't know what his motivation was. He was lying to us about, he never said he had any desire to take over all of Europe. And so it wasn't a situation that we were that concerned about. I mean, yeah, it got on our radar. Certainly we don't want a country just invading other countries. But, when he went into Poland or, things like that, he had reason, and it wasn't our problem. And, and he would say, well, this is as far as I'm going to go. So it wasn't until he had taken over much of Europe that real alarm bells started going off. And people said, there's something going on here. And then he started going after our allies like Britain. And that's where, obviously we always had a close relationship with Britain. We were, it's our sister country or mother country, I guess some people call it. We came from Britain. So at that point, yeah, I mean, Winston Churchill and the monarchy, I think it was King George, something, I don't know what number, start calling the United States and saying, hey, we need some help. I mean, he's coming after us. And now he's accumulated this huge army because he's taken people from every country. He's taken their gold, he's taken their resources, he's got lots of money, he's got lots of troops, and he's coming after Britain. That we had to start getting involved in sending over weapons and things to try to stop him. So it's the same thing here. Right now, Putin's claiming he doesn't want to take all these other countries. But if he starts to go in, we've learned our lesson from World War II. We can't trust him. If he starts going into one other nation, then we know we've got to put a stop to it before he takes most of Europe. And we can't wait until he's a superpower. I mean, Putin already is. Russia's already a superpower. But we can't wait until he's taken over most of Europe. I mean, because Russia's much more formidable than Hitler's Germany was. One of the few things we had to ally with Russia to stop Hitler, because Russia was able to help put an end to it. But if it's Russia that's doing the aggressing, then it's going to be impossible for any of those countries to be able to stop him. only the United States will be able to step in. And again, I don't really want a war, but I'm saying it might be inevitable, depending on what Putin's motives are and how far he wants to take this thing. So I don't know. I mean, if I was president, I'm not sure at this point what I would be doing. Obviously, I'd have to listen to my advisors and the intelligence community and try to find out what's happening here. But I don't know if I don't know how quickly I'd want to I don't know what I would want to do, because certainly I'd like to delay sending troops as long as possible, because I don't want to start World War III. But at the same time, I don't want Putin to think that he can go into these countries with impunity, because the United States is just going to sit idly by and watch it and not going to actually do anything. So it's a tough, it's really a tough call about when do we want to get involved? If we're going to get involved, when do we want to get involved? Do we want to wait until he's completely taken over Ukraine and goes into another country? Do we want to stop him while he's still relatively, he doesn't have a ton of troops in Ukraine right now? Do we want to push him out of here right now, like we did when Saddam Hussein went into Kuwait? That was basically like a week-long job. I mean, it really didn't take very long at all. We went in there and pushed the Iraqis over the Kuwait line and said, don't do this again, and it was done. That might happen with Russia. I mean, we might send in troops and push him back, because he doesn't have a lot of them, push him back over the Ukraine border and say, knock it off. You do it again, and you're going to have serious problems. Or he could send in tons more troops to support the troops he has, and next thing you know, we're in the middle of a war. I don't know. Sitting here in my home in Michigan, it's really hard to say whether or not Biden's doing a good job on this. Where I do fault him is, I think this could have been avoided before it got to this point. I think Biden could have done it, but he didn't. Now, I know that sounds rich coming from me, because all along I kept saying I didn't think Putin was going to invade Ukraine. So it sounds a little hypocritical for me to say that Biden should have done more. But Biden is the president. I'm not. Biden did have access to a lot of information that I didn't. So even though I was wrong, and I admit it, I was wrong, but I also think I should be cut some slack, because I don't have the intelligence that Biden has. And when I say intelligence, I'm not talking about mental intelligence, because we all know Biden is lacking in that. But I mean the military and intelligence and national security intelligence, which could tell us what Putin was planning. I know we have to have some people in Putin's government that we, call them spies or whatever, assets. I know we have people in governments all over the world who relay information back to the United States. So the United States should have known something was happening. The United States should have had some indication of the thinking. They might not know exactly what Putin's planning, but they should have a pretty good indication of his thinking. And and that's not even including, and I'm 100% positive we do this. I don't have any evidence that we do this, but I'm sure that we have bugs and other surveillance equipment set up in Moscow, in the Kremlin, in his hotel, in his house, and various places. I mean, everybody bugs everybody as far as the governments go. I mean, I have every reason to believe that, when Biden goes overseas, that his hotel room is bugged. I mean, I completely believe that, because that's what other countries do. They bug us. They try to bug the Oval Office. Sometimes they're caught, sometimes they're not, but we know that they have bugged. Over the years, we've got, Israel has bugged us, the Mossad. We've had, Russia or the Soviet Union has bugged us. I mean, we found them at various times, found different surveillance equipment. So I know we do the same thing. In fact, recently in Great Britain, there's been some controversy, because I don't think it was the United States. It may have been, but it's now come out through their MI5 or MI6 or whatever it is, that Princess Diana was bugged for a long time, and our government and British government has copies of her hotel rooms that has been bugged, her bedroom, her living room. And so there's a lot of questions as to whether or not, now that she's dead all these years, would that be a violation of her privacy to release them, or should we respect the privacy and destroy them? Because she was bugged illegally, and she didn't know she was being surveyed. Historians are like, well, that's part of history. We want to get that, but other people are saying, but So my point is that we know that everybody's being, but the royal family's bugged. You know, they tap their phones. They tap, our phones here in America. So I know that we have surveillance that we're doing in Russia. I mean, the government would never admit it, but I know that we've tapped their phones. I know that we probably have bugs in his home, in his office. We have people in his government that are giving us information, leaking information to us about his mindset, what he's thinking. So these all go to these practices that they can't reveal a lot of stuff, because if they do, then other countries like Putin would know. Well, the only people in the office were me, this person, and that person. So one of them had to have been the ones who gave that information. So the CIA and other people won't tell you how they got it, because otherwise you'd be able to figure out where the bugs are located or who's the turncoat, and we'd lose our assets. So I know it happens. That's my criticism of Biden, is because he claimed all along, even though I said he was wrong, he claimed all along that Putin was planning to invade Ukraine. So he obviously had some advance notice. So my criticism with him is, why didn't he do something to stop it? Why didn't he call Putin? Why didn't he, do more to try diplomacy before it got to this point? He allowed it to happen. He knew it was going to happen. He talked about it publicly, and then allowed it to happen. That's where I find the fault in Biden. Like, why did he allow this to happen? So that's what bothers me. That's where I find the fault. Right now, I don't know. I mean, maybe, one day a book will be written about what's going on in the Biden White House right now, and I'll read it and say, that stupid Biden, he knew, he messed this thing up tremendously. But as of right now, I don't know. I can't fault him in anything, because I don't really know if he's trying to push us into war, if he's trying to hold the military back from war. I don't know if he's not getting the proper information. I don't know if, I don't know. I really can't say. I mean, it's easy to blame the president for all the problems. I don't know in this case what Biden knows, what he's trying to do, what he's accomplished, what he's trying not to do. I don't know. So I don't have enough information to be critical. I do have enough information to say that Biden should have done something before it got to this point. And that's where I fault him. But as far as right now, I have to just take a wait and see, because I really don't know what Biden is trying to do. If anything, time will tell. Time will tell. The truth will come out, and then I'll have more information to be able to say one way or the other. But as of now, I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't like Biden, so it's easy to say it's all his fault and he's a moron and all this. But every president does good and every president does bad. None of them are completely evil. None of them are completely great. And so Biden might be doing something good here. I don't know. I hate to say it, but it's true. When I look back at history, there's going to be some things that Biden did that I'm going to say, I'm glad he did that. And there's going to be some things I look at him and say, I cannot believe how idiotic he was. As I've done with Trump, as I've done with Obama, as I've done with Bush and Clinton and every other president. Every president that I've studied, none of them, even Lincoln, I've said they did everything perfectly. They, in my opinion, Lincoln did a lot of really great things, and that outweighs what he did that was wrong. But he did some bad things. There's some things that I really think he messed up. And that's how I am with every president. There's some things that I'm just appalled by, and there are some things that I applaud them and say, that they rank up there with one of our heroes because they did this and this and this. So, anyway, changing topics just a little bit. It is the first day of spring, so I hope everyone is enjoying the springtime. Today it's very cloudy here where I'm at, so it's really hard to be enthusiastic. But but spring is here, and I'm happy to see that. Doesn't mean the snow's gone completely, but we shouldn't have a lot more snow, which is great for me. Because I know I live in Michigan, but I really don't like the snow, which probably is an indication I should move at some point. And speaking of moving, in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis blasted the NCAA on Tuesday for allowing transgender swimmer Leah Thomas to compete against biological women. This is it's from Newsmax, but it's based on a story from Politico. The NCAA is basically taking efforts to destroy women's athletics, DeSantis said at a bill signing event outside of Tampa. They're trying to undermine the integrity of the competition, and they're crowning somebody else the women's champion. DeSantis has joined a chorus of conservatives in criticizing the organization over its position on transgender athletes and University of Pennsylvania swimmer Thomas. According to Politico, transgender women have been allowed to compete in women's sports in the Olympics since 2003 and the NCAA since 2010. The Sunshine State's Republican governor declared University of Virginia freshman swimmer Emma Wyatt the, quote, best female, unquote, in the 500-meter freestyle race and honored the Sarasota native with a proclamation. Thomas beat Wyatt by 1.75 seconds during last week's race to clinch the NCAA title. DeSantis' comments were made after he promised to sign the Parental Rights and Education Bill that limits instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in school. The bill, which prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation and gender issues for kindergarten through third grade, has received widespread condemnation from Democrats, including President Joe Biden. The Walt Disney Company opposed to the legislation and has publicly clashed with DeSantis over it. Calling Disney a woke corporation, The Hill reports DeSantis said, "The chance that I'm going to back down from my commitment to students and back down from my commitment to parents' rights simply because of fraudulent media narratives or pressure from woke corporations, the chances of that are zero." According to published reports, Thomas previously swam 3 seasons on the UPenn men's team before transitioning. She, which should be in quotations, followed all NCAA guidelines in place at the time of his transition and afterward to be eligible to compete. In recent months, he placed first in several women's events before competing in the Ivy League and NCAA championships. The swimmer made waves. Oh, that's clever. The swimmer made waves in recent months after an NCAA updated its policy on transgender athletes, prompting outcry from both sides of the issue. In 2021, Florida joined several GOP majority states in passing legislation limiting transgender athletes' participation in biological women and girls' sports. Known as the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, the Florida bill requires that K-12 and college sports teams be organized based on biological sex and permits students to verify their sex through a birth certificate. According to Politico, at least 10 other states have passed similar bills. Oh my. I don't have a lot to say about that. I think it speaks for itself. On a related note, also from Newsmax, a headline reads, "Purdue professor under fire for saying that trans swimmer Lia Thomas should be celebrated." A Purdue University professor is under fire after saying that transgender University of Pennsylvania swimmer Lia Thomas should be celebrated as a, quote, trailblazer, unquote, the same way Jackie Robinson was when he broke Major League Baseball's color barrier. Cheryl, dare I say Kooky? I'm just going to say that. Cheryl Kooky, Purdue professor of American Studies and of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, penned an opinion piece published by NBC News in which she claimed that Thomas's victories in the pool should be celebrated as historical firsts. Thomas, as the first transgender athlete to win a Division I NCAA championship, deserves to be placed among the other firsts, Kooky wrote, referring to Thomas's first place win in the women's 500-yard. She, or I'm just going to change it, he should be remembered in the history of progress that sports represent and recognized as the trailblazer that he is. Kooky also said that Thomas's win allows women to break down gender barriers in sports and be, quote, treated the same and given the same opportunities as men, unquote. For anyone who cares about the advancement of sports, and women's sports in particular, his win should be celebrated, Kooky wrote. Opponents to trans athletes in women's sports strongly criticized the piece. Author and journalist Abigail Schreier said Thomas's win should not be lauded. First, they steal opportunities from women, Schreier tweeted. Then they tell us we should be celebrating this as a victory for women, a master class in gaslighting. The Daily Mail reports that Twitter user Tony Scampanelli agreed that celebrating Thomas was going too far. "This isn't an advancement of women's sports or sports at all," Scampanelli wrote. "It's the advancement of uncommon sense and obsession with some moral superiority based on progressive value." Laura Tuck, another Twitter user, took a screenshot of NBC's tweet promoting the article and edited the headline to read, "Anyone who cares about the advancement of sports, and women's sports in particular, should not celebrate Leah Thomas's win." Comparisons between Robinson and Thomas have ostensibly been made before. One of Thomas's teammates told the Washington Examiner in January that Thomas had allegedly compared himself to the baseball great. He compares himself to Jackie Robinson, the teammate who wished to remain anonymous for fear of being labeled transphobic said. Leah said he is like the Jackie Robinson of trans sports. When giving an interview to Sports Illustrated, Thomas reportedly denied the allegation. In a February opinion piece in the National Review, Madeline Kearns said it was not Thomas who should be likened to Jackie Robinson, but the biological female athletes opposing the trans swimmer being allowed to compete. They are the ones whose rights are being trampled on, who face humiliation and bullying, Kearns wrote. Again, I have no argument. I have nothing to say. That is perfectly stated. This is just getting to be the dumbest. I mean, I know we have more important things to be worried about, but this is a long-term problem, and I'm hoping it's a phase that we will eventually grow out of. But there are some serious things here. And this is a question that I saw on Twitter. I apologize, I can't remember where I read it. This was like a week or so ago, and I haven't been able to do my podcast for a few weeks, and so I can't remember exactly who it was. But they said, what is with the uptake of transgender kids? That was their argument. That they said transgender is such a rare. It is just such a rare thing in the United States, like less than 1%. But over the past couple of years, suddenly there seems to be a huge number of transgender people out there and kids who are claiming that they are transgender now. I said, what is with that? I mean, I know there's going to be some who argue that they feel more comfortable coming out now. But why was this never an issue before? And I think that is a great question. It's also the same question I have with homosexuality, where homosexuality is has always been such a small part of our population. And now it's just exploded where, everywhere you look, people are coming out as gay or non-binary or transgender or whatever, bisexual, whatever. I don't know. I don't know the whole alphabet. People. So why suddenly is it becoming very, very prevalent out in public? And it's a good question. It's something we need to think about. Why suddenly are you having all these kids who want to be gay and bisexual or transgender? This was never a problem parents had to deal with before. And now suddenly they're all coming out of the woodwork. And there is that person who wrote this doesn't have the answer necessarily. I mean, they had a couple of ideas about it being a fad, it being something to make them cool, make them something to be different, to get attention. Of course, there's also those parents who push their kids into it because they want to have a special child. And like, my kid's special. My kid isn't treated like other kids. My kid needs their own bathroom. My kid needs their own, whatever. Don't treat my kid like every other kid. But they also suggested that it's possible that this is just a fad, that, in 10 or 20 years, this will be something we look back on. It's just a weird time frame, kind of like goth or emo, when everyone was wearing black. And, when I was a teenager, it was real popular. Everyone was wearing black and black lipstick and black makeup and, was listening to this weird satanic kind of music. And, and it just was a fad. And eventually everyone grew out of it. And that's what they're saying. It's possible that in 10 years or 20 years, we'll look back and be like, that was just a weird time period in our country. I don't know. It's possible, but I don't know. And I hope it is, but I worry it's not, that we're screwing up these kids and there's going to be no real way to, that they can never return back to normal once they've gone down this path, that they won't. It'll be impossible to return them to where they were. I mean, that's my fear. But anyway, everyone, hope everyone has a great week. I'm going to go ahead and cut it a little short this week. We'll hopefully we'll be able to talk to you next week. See you then. Bye.
All right. That was our.
All right.
Whoops.
Looks like I am online
That's not good.
almost everywhere. Oh, Twitch is going to be taking a while,
I don't know where that's coming from.
but I'm online.
I'm just gonna mute that. So, oh yeah, it was coming from this. All right. My goodness, it just went right to the next one. Okay, so Jim is probably correct in a lot of what he said. Um, we are messing up a lot of this nation's kids. I actually took over a classroom for like I subbed for him, and there was this little girl that says she's a little boy, and the teacher left this note for me saying that this girl identifies as a boy, and if you accidentally call her she, the entire class will correct you. This was a private school. No, I think it was a charter school. But these teachers are helping to indoctrinate these children into craziness right here in Michigan. Um, so there's my spiel. I had a meeting in 2 minutes, so I am done for the day. Um, you may get a podcast from me on Monday. No, it won't be Monday. If I have time later today, I'll do it. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and I will see you guys maybe later today.